Really excited to be here. I have a long history with actually HardwareCon. I produced the first and second one, and been in that community for a while. Yeah, this is me. How I got here and skill sets. Usually you're not going to have a person with that much information about what they do, but this is who I am. I'm a multi-platform producer. I work in branding. I work with both the entertainment industry, the clean tech industry, some futurists, and also kind of interesting counterculture festival culture. Been supporting that a lot. And really looking at branding for change makers, branding for emerging technologies, branding for media tech. And my big love is narrative on every level. And I've written a lot more kind of thought pieces around what narrative is and how can we evolve narrative if you are ever interested. So this is a little bit about me. And if you want to kind of reach me, there's also will be a card in the end, but there's a bunch of tweets and all that. So what we wanted to, and both myself and Andrew, who's going to take after me, what we wanted to really look at when we looked at today's talk is why is brand narrative, branding, and PR so important, especially for startups? And I'm going to I didn't bring it up here, but everybody knows the percentages of successful startups versus ones that actually never make it to the second year. And it's pretty grim. And I think the belief system is not only if the product doesn't work, that's one thing, but also is the story working, is the narrative working, are people actually learning about and wanting to be part of the product you're developing. So this is why we're going to start with the brand narrative and kind of look at a few other things around here. And again, this is a really big topic. I can talk about it for hours. There's a lot of pieces about it. What I try to do is a little bit of an arc of the most important things I think a company, a startup should think about as it's moving to develop its own brand narrative. And it's not only just the brand, the logo, the look, the feel, but it's actually the story. It's actually what makes your story tick. Why are you doing this? So that is part of what I'm going to go over pretty quickly here. Next one. And one more. So this is an older conversation. It's been around for a few years. A guy by the name of Simon Sinek did this TED Talk that's I think the number 3 most adored TED Talk and watched TED Talk of ever. Called I think it's called Why Leaders Lead, but the gist of it, and it's also the book and kind of almost a movement of the start with why. And the idea that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it really is a little way of looking at how do you approach your audience, how do you approach your marketing, how do you approach your brand story when you're starting to look at your when you're starting to actually bring that out to the world, when you go past stealth mode and actually want to start talking to the world, and what should you have prepared. So the start with why model, this is the why golden circle, really looks at what do you start when you tell a story about your brand. So you start with why you do it. And he brings Apple because it's easy, and we're going to talk about Apple in a second, because it's actually a great juxtaposition. Where we are in the history of Apple right now is perfect. So Apple doesn't say what they sell. They don't talk about, oh, we sell 20,000, especially in earlier days, or like say late 90s, early 2000s, when they really had their big renewal. They basically sell why. They don't say, hey, we sell awesome computers, do you want to buy one? We sell awesome iPhones, do you want to buy one? They actually sell every time you lift any one of these, every time you actually interact with our experience, you are actually going against the status quo. You are thinking differently. You are a rebel. That was kind of like the old narrative of Apple, in the midst of Steve Jobs' renewal. And then how you do it, well, you go around and you sell it, and what you sell is what you sell. You sell iPhones, you sell computers, you sell iPads, you sell all these other things. You sell Apple TVs. It doesn't really matter because your why is really strong. Where if you look at Dell for years, Dell just sells computers. I don't think anybody, if that's a comparison, apples to oranges, truly, there is nobody knows what Dell's story is really. Like when you see Dell, you're like, oh, it's those clunky computers, those clunky PCs from yesteryear. I mean, really, that's the narrative. So that's that's the start with why conversation. And when you're starting to think about your brand narrative, you should ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's my origin story? Why did I start this? Why, especially with a saturated market? I mean, we're in the Bay Area. Everybody's a startup creator. I have some great thing that I got to show you. Why is yours more important than mine? And I really believe it's the passion. It's the passion of the person. And there's also been a lot of, let's call it shadow stories out there of passionate entrepreneurs that actually led a lot of people astray. Forgot the name of the company, but the woman who's been leading people astray for about 8 years with drawing blood. I forgot both the name. I should have brought her up, but I forgot her name. But that's like a great example of people believed her story so much that they were willing to put in hundreds of millions of dollars into defunct and actually non-applicable blood test. There's a few other stories like that actually. The vegan mayo people have the same issue right now. Huge PR problem, which you can talk about later. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Not even a name that rolls off the tongue, but now a name that's going to be forgotten. So I mean, that's another kind of problem. So if you're actually not going out there to really create change in the world, don't sell us that, because that's not going to happen. But if you're, like, I love the personal transportation industry is becoming really big, and really the why of it is, and where's the guy who was? Oh, there you are. I was sick and tired of driving to work and getting stuck, and I was like, I needed something, and here it is, done. This is really why I did it, and it's simple. And if I had the same problem, I would actually completely sympathize with you, and I go, oh, well, maybe I should consider that. And you can of course play with the levels of passion, and if you do a big video, you can kind of hem it up a little bit more, but really that's the truth. And a lot of times we get the BS, we get the things that actually, especially now, don't work anymore, because we're oversaturated with our product is going to revolutionize this, it's going to revolutionize that, which the truth is usually doesn't. So actually, why not go with the truth? Why are you doing this? Why are you staying up late working on this? Why is this so passionate? Why is your team so awesome? That actually sells better than telling a big story of mythology that actually doesn't happen. And it's again, if we kind of bring back the conversation to Apple, why are we so angry? I mean, I myself haven't updated yet. We're angry because the brand that promised us to be against the status quo, to be, to think differently, actually didn't think differently. They just decided to play with us again and sell us something that not everybody's really ready for. And then when we're not happy with it, they said, well, we're courageous and you're not. So they actually didn't even invite us into the story. They actually created a separation. So it's not even about being with the cool kids, is that their marketing is everybody's dumber, we know what to do. And it wasn't before. Before it was, we're innovating for you. This was not innovating for you. This actually felt a little bit of a slap in the face for a lot of people. And I've been reading and following it a lot, and people are just not happy with it. They're probably going to just buy it in the end because they want to upgrade. But a lot of people have already told me, no, we're going to get the double applicator and just use our old stuff, and that's it. So, this is what happens when you're not innovating to actually create easier and better user experience for your user. You're innovating because the engineer said, hey, I think it will sound better without that. And you're completely not looking at a much bigger ecosystem that actually is completely needing of the specific, the jack. It's, and I also work in the entertainment business. No, people are not going to use those headsets if they're actually using their iPhone for filming, and people do use iPhones for filming, for taking photos on a higher level. They need the jack because they're going to use their high-level headsets. So, you've all of a sudden created a lot of creatives and people who do think differently not to like your brand anymore. I'll switch because got a lot to cover. One more. So, and there's one more there. And there. You'll get it. So one of the narratives that's the three-act narrative that's part of a lot of stories that are told out there I've actually have written a little bit of an evolution for it. You'll get there. Is the hero's journey. And a lot of times, if we go back to the slide of Start With Why, or back to the image of Start With Why, there's a thought that you as a startup creators are these heroes. You're battling these demons and you're going out there and you're creating this brand narrative around yourself as a hero. But it's actually completely not true, and it's actually disempowering to your audience because you're actually not the hero of the story here. When you're actually trying to market something outside, your audience are your heroes. You're a mentor. You're not a hero. You're a mentor taking them on and mentoring them and helping them through whatever they need to do. They need to go to work. And your product, this is just, you're perfect there. So your product is something, is a magic trick that can help them get there faster. It might make their life better. It might help them on their journey. But in the end of the road, they may or may not need it, but if you tell them a compelling story and put them inside of that and show them their capabilities of how their life might be better if you give them that product, they might buy it. And this is my theory and a bunch of people that I know who look at what you call empowerment marketing and not inadequacy marketing, because inadequacy marketing is less and less working. It's really looking at, here we are helping our audience do better. We're helping them as superstars. But we actually take a backstage of going, we can mentor you to do that. So it's a very different approach, and it's starting to work really big in a lot of different movements and a lot of different products. So kind of very quickly is like, figure out what brand mentor are you, and there's, depending on your product, it can be different ones. So the Maverick, you could be a Maverick, the Explorer, if it's Patagonia, for instance, that's a great, Patagonia is a great brand mentor as a Explorer. And Magician is actually iPhones, this is magic, right? So there could be different ways that a brand can actually position themselves as a mentor for their audience. And it's more of a thought process. Who are we for the audience? Who are we for our clients versus I'm just selling products? Because that's really a bigger thought, because it also will start, beyond just your basic UX and your basic psychographics and personas, it will actually start having an affinity with your audience and a thought process. So then how do you message this? Next. So, I'm jumping to, okay, let's say we've had our brand, we developed a brand narrative, we're launching our product, what do we do? And there's so many, this is from, 2013, I think. There's so many platforms now, and I think the issue we are all having, and I'm a solopreneur as well, is that we got to put our message in so many places. And how do we choose? Like, what is the medium? What is the right medium for the right message? And that's, again, part of your early stage of understanding where your audience is. You also have to understand where do they hang. Unfortunately, a lot of us hang on all of these. And if your audience is North American on big cities, they might have many platforms that they use. So you need to start figuring out what's the right medium for the right message for the right medium. So in your thought process as you're developing your brand narrative, this is definitely something you need to start thinking about. It's definitely more of an end result, but it's part of like, how do I then not copy paste the same message on everything, but actually start curating. Not an easy task, but part of what you need to do, especially in early stage where you can't hire a full-time marketing person. So it's something you need to consider. Next one. And kind of just brought that image just to kind of show this is the world of advertising, promotion, marketing platforms, ad servers, what else is this? Commerce and sales, data, metrics, and management that is out there. So knowing that you probably will need to hire somebody to help with that, once you get your story right and all of that, also figuring out what your funnels and how you tell those stories in a good way is definitely another daunting task. So we move from like Start With Why to, and then I have to actually deal with this. So this is just kind of a reality check of while you're going through the process, have that in the back of your mind, because it's a lot of fun to go through a brand narrative and all of that. It's big vision, it's great, but at the end of the day, we'll need to actually interact with different platforms and go out there. So always having that in the back of my mind, where is it going? How is it serving my audience? How is it reaching? And is it effective? Because if we go and do this whole process of really understanding and figuring out why our project, who's our product, who's our audience, and then not knowing how to actually deploy it, then we're missing part of the system.
What are we looking at here?
This is right now the marketing technology landscape. So this is all your platforms, all your content experience, all your social and relationships, all your commerce and sale, all your data, all your management. This is the world that you will have to choose. You know, you'll have to choose what ad platform am I using, what marketing platform am I using, what CRM, what
Right, like
yeah.
right now I've got a website and an Amazon site, and then I've
Exactly.
got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yep.
It's driving me crazy.
Exactly. So if you actually have a plan and actually know what you're doing before, when you're starting to the funnel, instead of just being in reactionary mode of going, I got to be on all of these things, but actually kind of take a step back and going and ask yourself, what am I selling to whom? Where are they? Do your market research, and how do I best effectively use my time as a solopreneur or an entrepreneur to actually reach them? Because if you're posting a bunch of stuff on Snapchat and nobody's reacting, get off Snapchat. But it could be that Snapchat is where your audience is, or it could be that all of them are on Facebook. So have Twitter on automatic, like do a Paperly or something like that. It just kind of keeps the ball rolling, but don't use it all the time. You know, really is very, very important. And the reason I brought that in is because the possibilities right now are so big, and it's only going to get worse. There's going to be so much more possibilities to get your message out there. So you need to do your homework and be very specific before you even start. And this is basically kind of like where a lot of my clients, after I kind of build the whole narrative and all that, they get stuck, and I'm like, well, because we need to go back and go and understand our audience, go understand where they are, go understand how we sell to them. So, you know, this kind of like helps me to realize how daunting the task is, and kind of go to them and say, well, now we got to focus, now we got to choose the right platform for the right message, the right message for the right platform. And this is again back to the audience. One of the questions I always get from especially startups, especially engineers, is like, I don't know how to tell a story. Well, if you're human, you know how to tell a story. Full stop. Nothing in our evolution and civilization has ever started from not a story. You know, this was a story before it was an object. The table was a story before it was an object. So understanding that, and understanding that we tell stories about everything, gets you to get back to how do I actually tell that up for my products, for my audience. And the slide also talks about, you know, everybody is like, am I B2B, am I B2C, what do I do? But actually, if we step back again and go, wait, we're human to human, it doesn't really matter whether you're B2B or B2C. You just really need to know your audience, know your clients. So if you know your B2C, you actually could create psychographics that are more marketing and personas that are more corporate, but still humans. So how do I talk to corporate people? What is the language that they understand? What are the stories and narratives that they would like? And if you're B2C, then who's my audience? What's my segmentation? And of course, down the rabbit hole of personas, understanding each one, building all of that, and then really honing the messaging to the specific audience segmentation that you might have, and then testing and testing and testing and see what works. Marketing is not a formula. It's A/B testing and do it again, iteration. This is something I really believe in, building an audience for your product, and I think people who have done Kickstarters could probably really talk to that, because once you actually do a Kickstarter and it's successful, or an Indiegogo or anything else, you have an audience. You actually have your rabid fans who bought, who tested, and will follow you, especially if they love your products, and you can send them updates, and you can actually maybe sell them other things. They're already there. So really believe in, once you've done your Kickstarter, don't drop off the face of the earth, and continue sending updates, inviting them to your social media, inviting them, maybe especially your early adopters, they should be getting, if you're doing another Kickstarter, they should be getting some like discount or special, or before it goes online, you get like a special, like, you know, founder circle or something like that, depending on your product. Because people like that. People like to be loyal to a product that they like. Heck, like I've been using iPhones forever because I like them. I actually like the way they work. So, by doing that, you're inviting them to be part of this group. You're creating rabid fans, and they can be your brand ambassadors. And especially in that slower growth of startups, that really helps. And the idea that the audience will plateau by community is boundless. Because the community, there's a sense of togetherness, there's a higher purpose. So creating that for your audience and creating them and moving them into a community phase, I really believe can help. I really believe create something different. Like I serve a few different communities, and it really is interesting to see when you have an ask of, I want to survey, I want to sell something or anything like that, you always get response because you've created something for them. So they will follow you. So definitely something to think about, especially if you've done some crowdfunding, because then you have a crowd. So this is kind of really quick, because then you're up, I'm thinking 3 slides. So as a brand, we need to build a community of early adopters to support us, build an audience, we'll talk about it, communicate a product, find distribution, find a new way to monetize, keep our story front and center, know how to market ourselves, diversify portfolio, and also at the end of the day, pay the rent of the mortgage. So really understanding, and I'm seeing it more and more with every entrepreneur that I know, the list of what you need to do is just getting bigger. So the more planning, the more specificity that you have, the more groundedness on what your brand narrative and what you need to do next. And actually suggestion of not waiting for the brand narrative when your product's already out there. Unless your product is like one of those unicorns who just goes out the gate and just successful. But thinking about these things earlier on is important because you don't want to have something out there and then have a messaging that's completely not connected to it. That will actually can bring it down, and that also people will remember that, and that's a shame. So knowing all these steps is important, and knowing how much work we need to do. So this is kind of like more one by one. This is probably what we need to do. So all right, this is actually already went over it. But actually, here are some reasons to also build a community that I might have forgotten. The regular things of knowing if it works or doesn't work, testing your product on the market. But other things is networking is really big. If you build a community, then you can start networking. Suggestions for building a community. Hardware Massive are doing exactly that. You build events, you build meetups for the community to come in. Usually those events don't make a lot of money, but the residual of the networking is priceless. I know that from HardwareCon, I got so many, running HardwareCon, and before that I ran another group called Transmedia SF, and we've done 40 events, and I've done hackathons and startup weekends and all that. The networking money that I got through that, my career just went to the next level. Because another thing about creating events, and this is the interesting kind of psychology of creating communities as an event, because if you're just one of the crowds, you're one of the crowds. You might be brilliant, but you're one of the crowds. Once you build a community and run events, you're the expert. And it's overnight. It changes things. Because then, well, if you're creating an event, you must be the expert. If you're in front of here, I'm here, that's why you're listening to me, right? You don't know anything about me, but that's why you're listening to me. I'm not the expert. It's very simple. I actually do know what I'm talking about, I think. But it really is a great, especially as you're growing and you want to create scalability and continuity, creating this audience, creating this community around you can really, really be great leverage for finding also investors, getting your name out there. Also kind of an exit strategy because let's say your product doesn't work, but your name is out there, so people are going to ask you, this is Silicon Valley. You fell forward, great. What are you doing next? We heard about you. We heard you speak. That's great. Let's see what else is there. So I think it's also sustainability in the ecosystem of entrepreneurs, creating these communities. I mean, for me, it worked amazingly. I somehow, and I'll do a little plug at the end of your talk, somehow I keep getting invited to do bigger and bigger events. I don't ask for them, but they happen. So It's been really an amazing thing. So I think events, this communication that we have with others, the networking, vital for your startups. Next one. So this is where I get off. So from Ira Glass, great stories happen to those who can tell them. So it really is a proactive conversation, is that you gotta do it to make it happen. You're not just gonna be waiting for a good story to happen to you, and really is about, and this is what I always, the first question I ask any entrepreneur, why are you doing what you're doing? And really, why is this exciting for you? And if you can't answer that, move to something else. If you can answer that, that's a great start for hopefully creating something great in the world. So good luck, and I'm now going to invite Andrea Corey.